Where were you when the world stopped turning that September day? Out in the yard, your wife and children working on some stage in L.A. Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones? Pray for the ones who don't know.
So on 9/11, both my children were in a playgroup over at Hillsborough Elementary School, and I was driving on I-40 listening to NPR, and I heard that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center. And I happened to turn on the TV right about the time that the second plane hit. And I thought, oh my gosh, our world has just changed. There's no doubt.
I was at the public library on September the 11th. And what I experienced was disbelief. The chaos in New York City was unbelievable. And America will never be the same again. I believe it built more patriotism in America. It certainly did within me. And my heart breaks for all of the people affiliated with 9/11, the families, and of course for America.
On 9/11/2001, I was teaching at a boarding school in Massachusetts, and my first class didn't start until around 10 a.m., so I was eating my breakfast in my apartment, and I sat down to watch the news as I ate my breakfast, as I normally did. When I turned on the news, there was one of the Twin Towers smoking and smoldering, having already been hit by the plane. And as I continued to watch the news, I watched live the second plane hit the second tower. And there are no words to describe the emotions I felt, because it was almost surreal, something that you maybe would only see in a movie, except it wasn't a movie, it was really happening.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, I was Dean of General Students at Fayetteville Tech Community College, and I was driving from main campus to Fort Bragg. So before I could get to my office at Bragg, the third plane had struck the Pentagon. And I think that's what that's when I knew that something sinister was going on, and it just reminded me of my own mortality. I spent 22 years in the Army, and I was stationed in the Pentagon from 1992 until 1994. And my office was on the E-ring, which is where the plane went into the Pentagon. And it was one of those moments where you just have to pause and say, if not for the grace of God, I mean, it could have been me.
On September 11, I flipped on the Today Show. Matt Lauer and Katie Couric were talking about the first tower that had been hit. And at that time, they were still questioning why it had happened. Was it an accident? Had, you know, a flight schedule gone off schedule or whatever? And as they were discussing it, I could see a plane coming in to hit the second tower. And they didn't know it yet. I was watching it live. And I wanted to say to them, turn around, look at the picture behind you, because it's clear now that we're under attack.
9/11/2001, it was my first year teaching at Riverhead in New York, in Long Island. Toward the end of my second period, I went to the teacher's room. Our office were in one room, and the other French teacher was really upset. They had learned that one plane hit one of the towers, and actually her husband and son and her son's fiance all worked at the towers. And she called home. There was nobody home. She called her son's phone, and she couldn't get through to anyone. At that time, some of the phones had started jamming. So, and when the first plane hit, they started evacuating. They started evacuating the people. So she was one of the people that were evacuated by the cops and by the firefighters. So, but she actually lost. She lost a few coworkers who were actually already in the office when the first plane hit. And her husband worked on the 86th floor, which is just the floor below the first that was incinerated the minute that plane went through.
Well, when the events of 9/11 happened, I was teaching English at the University of Veracruz Language Center in Poza Rica, Veracruz in Mexico. So they had just gotten satellite service for television in the school building. So we tried to turn it on in the workroom and we couldn't get sound. So all I could see were the towers burning. Sorry, it still makes me emotional. And we could not get the sound. We couldn't get the sound. And my family lives in Niagara Falls, New York. It was CNN, and we knew there were planes still up, and they didn't know. The towers hadn't fallen yet, and they didn't know if there were other planes and how many. So I grabbed my cell phone and I ran into the courtyard to get service and called my sister in Niagara Falls and just asked her what's going on. Afterwards, I'd been so worried about people being negative towards the U.S. And afterwards, for months, everywhere I went, it was, we're so sorry, lo siento mucho, que horrible, you know, how horrible. Everyone, I would get in a cab and the cab driver, before even asking me where I was going, we're so sorry.
Heroes that emerged that day. I still remember seeing people, the firemen, just the strength and the courage of the people in New York and how they responded to that.
I have a great sense of appreciation for all the heroes of 9/11 and what they've done in the efforts to rescue and save and make the best out of it. I want to wish them all the best.
The real heroes out there are those armed forces, the law enforcement, the EMS. They're out there fighting the fight that we can to give us the freedom that we have as Americans. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
And as far as those who were there at the scene and who chose to run into the buildings and to help the people that were stuck, to me it just demonstrates the best of what we are as Americans and the way that people are willing to sacrifice their own lives to save their brothers and sisters.
But I'm proud to be an American, and we're standing here today, and I'm grateful for our men in the armed forces. I'm grateful for my stepfather and the work that he does.
Oh, thinking about our younger years, that was only you and me. We were young and wild and free. Now nothing can take you away from me. We've been down that road before, but that's over now. You keep me coming back for more. Baby, you're all that I want. When you're lying here in my arms, I'm finding it hard to believe. we're in heaven. Love is all that I need, and I found it there in your heart. It isn't too hard to see, we're in heaven. Oh, once in your life you find someone who will turn your world around, pick you up when you're feeling down. Now nothing can change what you mean to me. There's a lot that I could say, just hold me now, 'cause I love with